everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. Well, you might be feeling the rampage of energy coming up because as of today, when I'm recording this, October 16th, tomorrow is our next full moon in Aries. And it's packing a punch. Aries already packs a punch, but we've got some astrological placements, including Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, in these placements that brings a lot of tension. And what's really interesting is Aries is a sign of independence and leadership and pioneering, and it rules the first house and the house of self. And so there seems to be something coming to the surface, some awareness that needs to be uprooted and expressed in how we are viewing ourselves in life situations. How do we see ourselves? Are we seeing ourselves as a victim? Are we seeing ourselves as at the whim or the mercy of something? Or are we seeing ourselves as a sovereign individual? And what's going on in the energy is meant to purge those lower impulses, those places where we feel that we're not in control and we don't have any power, and that something is being done against us. And so it's really interesting that this energy is coming up because it will bring those feelings to light. And it's already started. On Monday, we started getting these planetary placements that offer this sort of dynamic purge, because between this grand trine I'm talking about that happens with the full moon in Aries is Pluto, Mars, Chiron, the sun and the moon all working together. They're all activated because they're all interacting with each other. So we know that there is a purging, that there is a desire to take action, that there's an agitation that occurs with this placement, but that ultimately it is for our empowerment and healing. And sometimes the universe says we kind of have to be slapped in the face to see our own part in what is happening, meaning how are we interpreting what's happening and what is it doing to our ability to move forward. Before I go deeper into the message from the team, I just wanted to remind you, in case you're seeing this in time, I know that for some people they see it after it's posted and so it doesn't always reach you in time, but if you are seeing this in time, there is a spirit circle happening on October 17th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I invite you to join me if you feel called. We will be doing healing work around these very topics, around how to move through this so that we move into our sovereignty and empowerment. We let go of anything false that holds us back. If you feel called to join me, here's the link. It will also be in the description below. All right, so now from the message from the team and the cosmos, if you will. But basically, this is a wake-up moment. There is a wake-up moment with all this energy, and the team is saying this is an opportunity for us to recalibrate what exactly we think it is that's happening to us. And they want us to understand it's happening for us. Many times when we're in a place where we feel safer, calmer, or more connected, we get it. This is happening for us. Yes, I did design this. Yes, I am co-creating with the universe. However, when we find ourselves at our challenge points where we are met with the catalyst in our lives, it is easy for us to go, I would never choose that. You can't tell me that I would choose such intense or painful or frustrating or challenging circumstances. And from a human level, no, you wouldn't. But on a soul level, yes, we have. And part of what is causing us to feel like it is so unfair is how we are viewing it. We are not seeing ourselves in the equation. And this isn't about blaming at all. This is not the universe going, well, it's your own fault. You created that. Not at all. Because on a soul level, we are working with a higher awareness. We see the bigger picture. We get the full map of our soul's journey, and we know the destination. We know what we are attempting to understand, calibrate, and experience at the soul level. There is a reason why we want to go through these experiences, and it's too easy to dismiss that when we're in pain or when we're challenged. And it can be hard to hear messages like this because they don't sound as sympathetic as maybe we'd like them to be. I know when I go through my own challenges, sometimes these words don't hit well until later. But the intention behind this message from the team is to re-empower you. It's almost like waking you up from a nightmare where you feel like you're in a car that is driving you and you can't drive it. That's how we can feel in these experiences. And these messages from the universe are a reminder that you're having a nightmare. You're seeing it so distorted that you're actually creating more pain for yourself than the experience intended to have. So this is where perception comes in again. And it's like, how though? How do I get myself to reconnect to my own power? How do I get myself to recognize the perception I'm holding rather than constantly deflecting and only being able to hear what reinforces my perception and rejecting everything that challenges my perception? And the answer is always simple and it's always the same, but the answer is to reconnect, right? Reconnect to the earth, reconnect to source. These are the two things that are getting disrupted. These are your two poles of energy, right? You have a north pole and a south pole. Your south pole would be your root chakra, and this is what connects you to the earth. This is what draws in the vital energy. And your north pole, right, helps you get connected from source. You already are source, but it gives you that supply and the knowledge and the information. It has to come through this upper area. What usually happens is when we're in a intense or a dramatic or really challenging situation, something just, even if it's just causing you a lot of stress, it might not be a world-ending feeling, but an intense stress feeling. What you can know is if your thoughts start going to everything is going to get taken away, or something bad's going to happen to me, my life is going to be threatened. This is a sign to you. There is a disturbance in the root chakra, and there is a disturbance with my connection to the grounded energy of the earth, where the earth will, when I connect with it, I will start to feel like I'm being held, like there is more than I can see, and I start to feel a sense of security. When our sense of security is threatened, we get a shaky connection. We're never fully unplugged. We don't fully unplug until we pass over, but we get a shaky root chakra connection. And when that happens, it's like all the upper stuff, it's like it shuts down temporarily until you can reaffirm and reestablish that connection at the root level, because the root level is always the first to activate. It has to be, imagine it kind of like it's plugged in, but the plug is loose. And so it's like, it's not fully getting the current of energy it needs to get. So we need to reestablish that energy in order for us to be able to then again go up the ladder of chakras and turn things back on, open them back up. And so the message from the team on how to do this is first intend to ground, intend to connect deeper to source. So you can do that physically. You can go outside and you can ground in nature by walking around barefoot. I know it's getting colder outside for some of us here. That might not feel so great, but even a couple of minutes, even from time to time, even in the winter, I'll do it. I don't love it, and it's really wet and cold where I live in the winter, but I will take my shoes and socks off and walk around on the grass as long as I can handle it, and then come back in and warm up. But just doing that gives you that charge that you need. It's like a recharge to that battery down there, to your root chakra, and that will help you. Also, intending to ground. This is where, again, working with your nervous system and calming that so that you can feel yourself reconnect energetically to that which grounds you. And so, again, legs up the wall is my favorite way. I did it just yesterday, and it was like, wow, I really didn't know how much I needed that until I did it, right? Sometimes we hear these things and we're like, that never really works for me. You got to just do it. You just got to get yourself there. And also sea salt. Sea salt is also very grounding. The shape of the salt crystal is a cube, which is the representation of the number 4. The number 4 represents the earth. It is literally the salt of the earth. It's the core energy of the earth. And so when you take in that salt, whether you put it in water, put a little on your tongue, bathe in it, any of those things helps to recharge you at the root chakra level and ground you. Now, what turns the rest of our chakras back on? So once you get that charged up root chakra, where you're like, okay, I don't love this, but I'm okay. When you get there, then we can start flipping the switches of your other chakras back on. And what always works to do this is gratitude. Gratitude for what's around you. Gratitude that the earth is providing you with an electromagnetic field that allows you to recharge and reestablish your root chakra energy. That's the first thing you could say. I'm grateful that my nervous system is recalibrating. I am grateful for the salt that I have access to. I'm grateful for the water I'm drinking. You see how it goes. You can keep building it up. Eventually, in doing that, you are reaffirming that life is working for you. And this helps to rewire the story that is taking hold, because we can absolutely unground and get stuck in our head. So it's almost like you get stuck in your mental body. And that mental body is a tricky place to be because it's highly influenced. It can be highly influenced by the emotions it creates, and then it's like it recycles. So your thoughts actually trigger the emotional state, but the emotional state acts like a feedback loop to the thoughts. And so imagine if you're having really intense thoughts that are disempowering, they're victimizing, they are minimizing, they're making you feel smaller and less safe all the time, and it's generating a lot of fear. That fear then acts like a feedback loop and reinforces those thoughts. Now, if you're stuck in your mental body, then you're kind of just living there. You can't imagine anything outside of that feedback loop you got yourself trapped into. And that's why you've got to do something physical to get yourself back into the body, because in the mental body, you can't really recharge the chakra center. The chakras, those energy points, are living within the body. So we have to work on all these different levels. And it can be really difficult sometimes when we're pulled into an intense situation or we're just having intense stress. This is where we can really get trapped in that mental body emotional feedback loop. And even if you really want out, if you're not doing the things that secure you, that help you to feel secure. Now, these things by themselves are not enough. You might have to do a lot of different things to help reestablish the root chakra. And just establishing the root chakra without addressing the thoughts won't be enough, but you've got to start somewhere. And I find if you're stuck in your head, if you're stuck in a thought body feedback loop, go to the easier place. It's harder to get out of that without adjusting something. So go to the physical, right? If you were stuck in the physical, if that was this thing, I would say go to the mental, right? Like counterbalance it with something. Because I find that trying to address the thoughts alone without making an adjustment somewhere else just keeps you just keep ricocheting right back into it. You need to do something that is physically shifting you so that when your nervous system shifts, your mind starts to shift, because it will have an impact one on the other. Just like when we think more calm, grounded, empowering thoughts, our nervous system calms down. When our nervous system calms down, it allows us to get out of that feedback loop. So that is the main guidance from the team this week. And what's happening in the cosmos, again, is kind of like a little slap in the face. It's a loving slap, but it's like, imagine if you were in hysterics on some level, and it's like no matter what people say to you, you're just stuck, you're stuck, and you need that shake to get out of it. That's kind of this moment is a bit of that. And it's coming from a loving source who's reminding you of who you are. In fact, if you've seen that movie Inside Out 2, we just rented that as a family last weekend. But what a moment in that movie, and sorry if this is a spoiler for people, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want to hear, you can skip this part. But in that movie, the antagonist, not really the bad guy, just antagonist, which is anxiety, is in a panic attack. And you can see, they literally visualize for you that feedback loop. And it is a paralyzing moment when you're stuck in your mental body in the feedback loop. You are paralyzed. And the other character, Joy, acts as the catalyst to bring that part out. What was interesting is they even demonstrated how anxiety herself wanted out, but she couldn't get herself out. And sometimes it takes something greater than your mind to get you out of that. And that's what this moment is talking about. The universe is trying to pull you out of any kind of stress spiral. And again, I want to emphasize, this might sound like I'm talking about something extreme. It really depends on what's going on for you. Some of us, we all have stress. We can all acknowledge that. Some of us have more stress than others. Some of us have stress that feels like it's coming from the outside, where others of us feel like it's self-created. And it doesn't really matter. The point is, if you feel like you cannot cope with it, if it's gotten too much, ground, regulate the nervous system, really ground, so that you can then move into, okay, once I've established that strong root chakra connection, I can now go and systematically flip all my chakras on. Here's the thing, when you're in that mind spiral, your chakras aren't on. Not the upper ones. The lower three maybe. A lot of us can go with just one chakra on, which is the root. And like I said, when your sense of safety and security is threatened, then your root chakra is shaky. So imagine having only one chakra on because you're in so much stress, you're so shut down. And then that one chakra is feeling like it's gonna, disconnect, reconnect, that feeling. That's what I'm talking about. So if you find, well, I'm trying to meditate or I'm trying to visualize positive things and it's not happening, be really honest with yourself and ask yourself, do I feel safe? Do I feel secure? If either one of those is a no, then there's a good chance nothing's lighting up here. So it's harder to hear higher guidance. It's harder to visualize and see what's coming because all of that comes from these upper chakras. Right? All of that activation within ourselves comes from the higher levels of awareness that we have. And so this isn't to say you're not doing the work. You could be doing all the things and not getting it, because if the root chakra is in distress, nothing else can turn on. So address that energy, stabilize that energy. And then once you feel more secure, more safe, then moving into gratitude can help to turn these centers on. And the more you feel empowered, the more you feel stable and calm within yourself, the more open each of these centers can become. And it can be done, but it takes that moment of critical awareness going, yeah, I've got to get out. I'm stuck. And that's hard for some people. It's hard to get there sometimes, right? Sometimes we really have to be in a spin before we realize it. But we can. And the universe is like, let me be the force that shakes you awake. And so even if we feel like, well, that's kind of tough love, we can even have gratitude for that because it's helping us get out. Now with that, let's look at this week's karma cards. All right, if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message for this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers: a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel, what is the guidance that you need this week? Are you looking for action? Are you looking for outcome? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you are choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for October 16th through the 23rd. And the flavor of this reading, we've got the sun, which is all about our being state. So it's about moving into that state of being able to express what it is we're holding in the sign of Sagittarius, which is activating the higher mind and a bird's eye view. So we're seeing more. And in the first house, which is the house of self-perception and self-image. Spiritual action at this time is to demonstrate your highest ideals immediately. So one of our highest ideals is our understanding of sovereignty. As we go through the story of the zodiac, starting with Aries and then going all the way to Pisces, one of the things we become more and more aware of is our personal power and our sovereignty. So at our highest points, we are understanding just how powerful we are, the sovereign being that we are. And we are being asked to own that. You are a sovereign being. Nobody can have power over you that you don't grant. Even if it's unconscious, you can unconsciously grant it so you didn't know you did it. But no one has that over you without your consent. You have free will. And so that's one of the things I'm hearing is, especially with this particular full moon, is recognize your highest ideal, who you really are, the sovereign being that you really are, and do it right now. Mental action at this time, realize the rules of the way you project yourself. I feel like this one's pretty straightforward, right? So remember, the external world is a mirror. There is something going on out there. I'm not saying nothing exists, but it's really what we project onto it is how we experience it. So if we're coming from a place of feeling insecure, scared, unsafe, we are going to have that reflected back to us. Even though the world itself is, there's some features that are the same, there's a mirror essence to it where it gets reflected back to you. This is that same concept of what you're focusing on, you're drawing to you. So the more you're focused on how unsafe you feel, the more unsafety feels like it approaches you. The more empowered you feel, the more you have trust in your own power and in a higher power, you will also see that reflected back to you. So it's really important that you understand the rule. The rule is whatever you're putting on the mirror is what you're going to get back. Physical action at this time, act like a leader, get out in the world and do it on your own. So if you're waiting for someone to guide you to do this, the team is joking, is like, this is the sign. If you're looking for a sign, here it is. This is the only way that something outside of you can get this to you. Either you hear this message and it resonates and you make a choice to take it in, or you ignore this one and then it kind of like might message you again. But honestly, this is something you have to establish for yourself. So that feeling of, I am a sovereign being. I am powerful. I am a powerful soul that also exists in the non-physical. I have created something here. I know that I've come here to express and experience something for my own soul's growth. The part of what I'm here to do is clean up my perception. If I don't like what I'm seeing, change it. It's so powerful. I mean, we have, right, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. It does start with you, and it starts with your perception. It gets easier and easier when you adjust your perception. So if things aren't going your way, you can say, things aren't going my way. Life is hard and it doesn't want to support me. That's what you're projecting onto the mirror. Guess what you're going to get back? If things are going hard, you're like, oh, life is challenging me to grow and it's asking me to step up and move deeper into my power and to claim what I want. And I am claiming what I want, and I am going to show up and do what I can do to get that, right? Whether it's peace, whether it's something to achieve, whether it's harmony, whatever it is. When you start saying that, that's what you put on the mirror. And I've told you stories of how I've noticed that in small ways. I've told you the story already. It's coming to mind again just because I had to work with it again today, but of my experience with GarageBand, right? I know it's silly, but it demonstrates it really well. I remember looking at that software years ago and opening it, kind of curious and being like, ooh, what's this? And seeing it and being like, Like my eyes crossed and I went, oh, hell no. And I shut it down. I'm like, never going to have to use that. I don't want to use that. And then, of course, deciding I want to produce meditations and I want to help people in that way and reach people that way. And then needing to use it because I'm in a situation where it's more beneficial to me to learn that than to outsource it right now. So I had to go and confront that. And what did not work for me was opening up that software and constantly reaffirming to myself that this is hard. I don't like it. I don't get it. It gives me a headache. What do you think I experienced every time I opened it? It took me, I think, maybe 2.5 weeks of opening that, getting overwhelmed and feeling shut down and shutting it down, not even going there. 2.5 weeks of that behavior before I got on and went, wait, what am I doing? Every time I open this, I tell myself a story. I have a perception about me and this software and how it's my nemesis and never going to work for me. And I'm really getting in my own way. This is something that is neutral. It has no agenda against me. It just exists. I needed to do that. I needed to slowly step it down and be like, this doesn't have an agenda against me. It just exists. It's me. I'm telling myself that I can't do this. Well, I don't like that story anymore. I can do that. And so it started with, I can do this. I can do this. I will do one thing. I'm going to learn one thing. And when I get that one thing, I'll know I can do something else. And that's how I did it, little steps at a time. And to the point where I've gotten pretty proficient with it. I'm not an expert by any means yet, but I can use it. The reason I bring that whole story up again is to help illustrate to you how I had a story about how feeble or unable I was to use something and how I literally disempowered myself every time I got around it. And it wasn't until I woke up and realized I'm doing it to myself. Now, where in your own life right now is something happening where you are also disempowering yourself? Yes, something can be challenging. That thing is challenging. Open it. If you haven't used it before, go look at it and then you'll see. It is a challenge, but that didn't include the disempowerment. It was just a challenge. So where in your own life are you being tested or challenged and you are adding to it? Your perception is working against you. I guarantee you that the challenge shifts on you when you start changing your perception of it. So now let's look at outcomes for the sun in Sagittarius in the first house of self and self-perception. Spiritual outcome at this time, the creation of insights to understand who you are. Yeah, this is powerful. When you get over one of your personal stories, when you start to question the perceptions, especially the ones that create more fear for you, create more insecurity for you, keep you out of trust, keep you out of a sense of safety or security, when you start challenging those, you start to get a better idea of what you actually are. I don't know if we'll ever be able to fully comprehend what we actually are here. I mean, we can learn about it, we can touch on it all the time, but it isn't until you challenge your self-perception, your self-projections, your self-image. It isn't until you start to challenge that you really get to see that something magical is happening here. Something quite profound is happening here. And so this is an opportunity point for you to do that. Mental outcome at this time, gaining of respect for or from the wisdom of your desires. So this is an interesting point they're making, your desires. And I'm like, but how does it relate to what we're talking about here? And they said, even your perception that you're holding now is based on a desire. I want to be safe. I want to be secure. I want to be loved. I want to be accepted. I want to be... Our perceptions aren't built on, I want to be a victim, right? It's not based on that. It's not based on that. So we are not doing this to ourselves to hurt ourselves, right? This is where we show the compassion to ourselves for the perception we hold. Why did I hold that perception about that tool? I didn't want to fail. And by preventing myself from being challenged, part of me thought I was preventing myself from failing. Until I looked at it and went, you know what, it's actually keeping me from succeeding at something else. So I had to face it. But again, there's a part of me. Now, this part of me is probably some part in my inner child, some maybe part of trauma I've had in the past, where it felt like by keeping me away from things that challenged me, I wouldn't lose something. But ultimately, you have to turn around and go, but you're losing an opportunity. And that's when that part went, oh, right. Like, oh my gosh, the way I'm trying to protect myself or take care of myself is the very thing that's leading me to the pain I'm experiencing now. That one's a shocker. But when you catch it, when you go, why am I holding this thought? I'm trying to keep you safe. I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to make sure nothing bad happens to you. Those are good intentions just gone awry. It's like in that movie I was talking about. Anxiety was trying to protect the main character, the girl. It was trying to make sure she would fit in and take care of her future. But it went overboard, right? It went bananas, and it got her caught in that thought mind spiral loop. Very rarely, in fact, I would say, I'd venture to say, an absolute, which is always dangerous, but I don't think our thoughts ever intend to harm us. Maybe there's harmful thoughts that do, but for the most part, I think the things that we create as perceptions that end up harming us were based on a good intention of, I want to keep you safe, I want to protect you from this or that. That wisdom's coming forward now. Thank God, because that's what needs to heal. It's time to recognize that the thing you're doing, or the thought spiral, or the stress state you're in is intended to help you, but it got out of control. And now the awareness is here to go, yeah, that's actually getting in my way. What a blessing. Physical outcome at this time, things brought to lighter life resulting from the understanding of your actions. Again, as we get clearer on our perception, whatever it is, even if we're like, okay, I get it. I was doing this to protect myself from failure. Or I'm doing this to protect myself from harm. Now we have that awareness. We go, oh my God, what have I been doing? I can look at my projection. That's the action I'm really seeing. Maybe there's some actual actions that, blocking certain people or avoiding doing something because you feel like it's going against what would protect you or keep you safe. Something like that. Maybe that's it. And you're like, oh my gosh, these things are actually causing more suffering and pain. And so it really is like this beautiful clarity. It feels very clarifying, this period. It feels very astringent. I've been loving that word lately. It feels very astringent. Like, I'm wiping the haze off of a glass and I'm seeing a crystal clear vision now. I can see through the glass. Before I could only see what was hazy. Now I can see through it. And oh my goodness, it's not what I thought it was. That feels like the period we're in right now. So while we're going through that, of course, be gentle with yourself and recognize what's happening. Am I not feeling safe? Am I not feeling secure? If those are the things that you're feeling dominantly, it's not a fleeting thing. It's just like it's a dominant feeling. Time to check in with the root chakra, time to stabilize that energy so that you can again start getting a strong connection, opening that back up and allowing the energy to pass through your body and getting out of that thought feedback loop. That's what's available to us this week. So I'm giving you lots of love. I hope this is helpful. I hope it's clarifying and that you get to move forward into a better space. Mwah.